After spending some time in the shadow of the UFC, boxing has made an incredible comeback, with the Paul brothers renewing the sport and bringing younger viewers to the stands. And because of this, professional boxers have been working hard to make a name for themselves in the ring. But what boxing headlines should fans know about right now, and which bouts can be expected in the future? For all this and more, stay tuned. Number 1, Anthony Dirrell calls for Canelo fight after demolishing Marcos Hernandez. First up on our list is a headline that has shocked the boxing world to its core. We are, of course, referring to the moment that Anthony Dirrell knocked Marcos Hernandez out in the Canelo undercard fight, and then responded by calling out the main fighter in a rather unexpected fashion. For those of you who don't know, Saul Canelo Alvarez is by far one of the greatest boxers of all time, and just recently became the first man to ever unite the super middleweight division with his incredible knockout of the undefeated Caleb Plant. But before this bout took place, Dirrell was the one in the ring taking on Marcos Hernandez, and as it turns out, the bets were pretty much against him. You see, at age 37, Dirrell has been said by many experts to be on his way out of boxing, but it looks like the American athlete is having some trouble letting things go. Not like we're complaining though, especially if he keeps on performing like he is at the moment. Before the Canelo Plant fight, Dirrell was making an absolute fool of Hernandez, who he danced around without much effort, and after just 4 rounds of domination, Dirrell was able to land an insane uppercut that saw Hernandez slumped over on the floor. And while he was later able to stand, there's no way that he would be able to continue fighting with those shaky legs. Just like that, he pointed at Canelo. Can we expect a Canelo-Dirrell fight in the future? This wasn't an in-the-moment decision either. According to Dirrell, he's been waiting to fight Canelo for quite some time now. But since many believed that he was very much retiring in the coming days, nothing was done to get the two fighters in close proximity to one another. So when he discovered that he was fighting in Canelo's own undercard match, he knew that he had to do something to make his desire known. In a post-fight interview, Dirrell was then asked about the fights he'd like to have before retiring with zero regrets. He responded that the fight against Canelo is really the only other fight he wants to be involved in. He's a 2-time world champion after all, and clearly mops the floor with fighters like Hernandez, so why not give him the chance to take out the main honcho and retire on top once more, right? But Dirrell also went on to state that he understands just how popular Canelo is at the moment, and that since everyone wants to ultimately dethrone him, Canelo has a massive number of choices as to who he wants to take on next. Last but not least, Dirrell went on to mention that he can't secure the Canelo fight. There's no doubt that he's ready to retire on some faraway island. That being said, he will do just about anything to face off against a title holder one last time. We'll have to see what the future holds. Number 2, Bob Arum speaks up about the fight he wants next. Dirrell isn't the only boxing name that's been making his opinions known over the last few weeks though. Another legend of the ring, promoter Bob Arum, has given some hope to Tyson Fury fans by stating that the next Fury fight should be against Dillian Whyte, as this would make for a pretty impressive defense of the so-called title of the Gypsy King. And according to Arum, he wants to negotiate the fight without any order from the WBC. At least that's what he told IFL TV a couple of days ago. But why would he want to do this without the help of the WBC? Well, as it turns out, Whyte is still in arbitration with the WBC, and there's no doubt that they won't be ordering the fight until this entire arbitration mess is brought to an end. And it goes without saying, but nobody can say just how long the arbitration is going to go on for. So if things are still in a standstill early next year, it makes sense that Whyte would negotiate to face off against Fury in a voluntary capacity. This means that Whyte will have to agree with whatever Arum is offering, as the voluntary defense of the title no longer places him in the position of power. That being said, at least he'll be fighting at the end of the day. If not, it looks like nothing but more arbitration lies in Whyte's future. Number 3, the upcoming FUNDORA GARCIA fight is looking to be the fight of the century. One fight you can certainly be looking forward to is the bout between Sebastian Fundora and Sergio Garcia, who will be facing off against one another at the Staples Center come December 5th. And it's not just fans of either fighter that will be watching in anticipation. As it turns out, the bout's going to be a super fight to be remembered for centuries. At least that's what the experts have been saying. This makes sense though, considering how both Fundora and Garcia are undefeated right now. In other words, after the WBC super welterweight title eliminator match, just one of their records will remain standing. This is also one of the last boxing matches to be held in the Staples Center before it's renamed to the Crypto.com Arena on Christmas Day, making it a rather important bout historically speaking. According to Fundora, facing off against the number 2 ranked boxer in the world is a definite step up from where he came from, something that he has ensured over the last couple of years of competing. For those of you who don't know, Fundora hates the concept of punching down. As such, he's constantly looking for new competitors that will push him to a higher level. And there's no doubt that Garcia is the next man on this list, but whether the California native will be able to make a success of himself on the day, we'll have to see. It's going to be a tough one. Number 4, Canelo's latest decision has Eddie Hearn in shock. Unfortunately for Anthony Dirrell, Canelo Álvarez has made the decision to move up to cruiserweight so that he can challenge the towering frame of WBC champion Ilunga Makabu. And while this doesn't necessarily mean that the Dirrell-Canelo fight will never happen, it does decrease the probability that fans might see the match take place at some point. That being said, this decision has somewhat shocked promoter Eddie Hearn, who thought for sure that Canelo would be spending his days at 175 to serve as the undisputed champion of that weight class. It's what the majority of boxers do after all, but it sounds like Canelo doesn't want to be just another champion. He wants to move from weight class to weight class and take home as many championship titles as possible in doing so. This has, however, prompted many experts to ask whether Canelo is actually scared to fight in the light heavyweight championship. You see, these are dangerous names like Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol in the lineup, both of which would be posed a pretty big problem for Canelo. So did Canelo lose his nerve after taking a look at what becoming the undisputed champion of the light heavyweight division would take? While we understand why critics would think this, we doubt that other contenders played much of a role in Canelo's decision-making process. The man does what he wants in order to fight whoever he desires. It's just the Canelo way. Number 5, Tim Bradley speaks out about the Canelo decision. And as it turns out, it's not just Hearn that's shocked about the Canelo decision. Fellow fighter Tim Bradley has also spoken out about his choice to move over to the cruiserweight championship ladder, stating in simple words that fans would have much rather preferred to see Canelo taking on Benavidez in the future. This was just the beginning of Bradley's opinion though. He went on to describe Canelo as someone who is orchestrating being great rather than actually working to become a champion. Rather than fighting like his fellow contenders in a singular ladder, Canelo has been cherry-picking championship fights with the intention of avoiding competitors that could very easily knock him down a peg or two. And according to Bradley, this conclusion makes sense considering his choice to face off against Ilunga Makabu. Of the 5 cruiserweight champions that Canelo could have chosen, he went for a guy who is no doubt the weakest amongst them. But Canelo could very well find himself facing off against the others in the coming days. And there you have it, all the boxing headlines fans of this sport should know about right now. What did you think of the Dirrell knockout? And what's your opinion on the Canelo shift? Be sure to let us know in the comments section down below.